The gentleman joining me today on Niche Sports is someone who's a true all-rounder. I'm not talking only from the point of cricket, but in life as well, because he's got the right amount of seriousness, he's got the right amount of fun, he's got the right amount of sincerity, but at the same time, he's got the right amount of that prankster in him. But on the cricket field, let me tell you, he could bat, bowl, and he was a safe pair of hands. A great cricketer from Zimbabwe, really carried them through those years in the 1990s and the early 2000s. My very dear friend, Heath Streak, thank you so much for joining me. Firstly, what caught my eye was the jacket that you're wearing. Can you tell me, is this from the 90s or was it later in your career?
No, actually, this one here says Zimbabwe Junior Rugby. It's my son made the Zimbabwe under 13 rugby team, and we got these as a supporter. So yeah, it's my turn now to follow him and watch him instead of him watching our sports and where I'm coaching.
Yeah, it's really amazing, isn't it? That now your son is playing, and it is interesting because your dad Dennis was also a first-class cricketer, and you two, in fact, played an official first-class game together as well. So, was that always running in the family? Was it just cricket or all sports, or what was it like?
Very much a family-orientated thing. I grew up around cricket fields with dad playing so much club cricket, first-class cricket, and he represented the country as well. My grandfather was also a cricketer as well. So, unfortunately, I didn't have much choice in the matter, but I loved it. I loved it from a very early age, and I think it was, that was a big advantage to me because I honed my skills, natural skills from a very young age, playing with my friends, playing with a tennis ball, and just messing around. So I think it definitely gave me a step ahead of the other kids by the time I started school because I'd already played a lot of cricket.
And just playing that game with your dad, what was it like? Was it like one of those games maybe in your ranches or on the farms, or was it serious business and he was the senior man telling you, you've got to do this or you've got to do that?
No, it was enjoyable. I mean, I started my career when dad was ending, and dad played much later than most people retire in the sort of mid to late 30s, and dad was playing well into his early 40s. So I got to play our sort of what we call districts cricket, which was a little bit more very competitive, but more on the social side. And I also played club cricket with him, which was very serious cricket. And I got to play one first-class cricket match with my dad.
Yeah, I remember that one because that scorecard is very famous, I think, for Wayne James' record of those wicket-keeping dismissals and scoring 99, I think, in both innings, if I'm not wrong. But Streaky, you made your debut for Zimbabwe in '93 and a young test cricketing nation, but with a lot of cricketing culture already. What was it like playing for Zimbabwe in that era when you were finding your feet in test cricket, but the cricketing culture as such in the country was already there and was quite strong?
Yeah, I think it was very exciting times. We had Zimbabwe as a country had to work so hard playing in the ICC tournaments to try and qualify to become a test playing nation. So it was a huge achievement. When I was in my last year of school doing my A levels, as an 18-year-old, I remember watching the first test match, and when Zimbabwe played India and New Zealand in the first sort of test, and it was a big thing for us. And even at that stage, I hadn't even thought about actually a career. I wanted to play for Zimbabwe, but I didn't think about it as a career in Zimbabwe because we all sort of looked towards England and maybe Australia as possible career options. So to then make the Zimbabwe team the following year and come into that fold was special. It was special that I was part of that history unfolding, and a lot of us were amateurs, semi-professionals. We had other jobs. We were working as well as playing for our country. It wasn't a fully professional job at the time, but we had a lot of passion and commitment to playing for our country, and it was a special time, because I suppose in those days, because it wasn't money driven, it was very much the honor and passion, to represent your country was what drove you most, and I think that was really what helped us as a small country. We really had a lot to prove, and I think we did well in the initial stages.
And Streaky, and that was quite a good team that Zimbabwe had. The Flower brothers, Alistair Campbell, Dave Houghton, from the 1983 World Cup, continuing through, getting a double hundred in the 90s as well. And there was so much talent and ability in that side that nobody would take Zimbabwe lightly. And as you saw, you were beating some of the bigger sides. Also, the '99 World Cup. What were the aims exactly of that Zimbabwe side as you walked onto the park? Because there was a lot of ability there.
Yeah, I think credit to Zimbabwe cricket at the time. The teams that really got us into the Test arena and got us to play on such a big stage in the '92 World Cup and prior to that qualifying, a lot of those guys retired shortly in the early 90s, in '93, and this young core group of players came through, and we were very talented. But I think because that core group of players stayed together for so long, in that period of '90s, we all knew what our roles were, where our niche was in the team, and we had some very, very special players. You mentioned a couple, but like a guy like Andy Flower, whose record, in the number of games he played was equivalent to Sachin Tendulkar. That's something very special. We had other guys like Alistair Grant, Flower. We had some excellent bowlers. Edda Brandis, Paul Strang, the leg spinner, was unbelievable. I had some good successes. Henry Longer when he came on. We had a good core group of players. Guy Whittle. And that group of players was there for the majority of the '90s, and we really built and grew as a team, and we were exposed, to tough conditions. We played a lot in India and a lot in Pakistan and a lot in Sri Lanka in that '90s period, and I suppose it toughened us up as cricketers, and we really learned our trade really well, primarily away from home. We didn't play as much as at home as probably they do now. But it was a special time, and we were lucky to have, the older players, the likes of Davey Houghton and stuff, who were able to be the sort of senior players, but with a core group of very young and energetic players.
Again, you spoke about coming to India, and those visits were so frequent. The Zimbabwe team was very popular in India. And what was it like for you coming to this part of the world and seeing the number of people and the amount of love that a team like Zimbabwe would get? We were treated like stars over here. Any funny stories from that time or any learnings that you have? Because you've kept coming back to India ever since.
I think, for us, my first international tour, actually, we went to Bangladesh. Before Bangladesh was a test playing nation, we played against Bangladesh. Then I played in the Hero Cup in India. And for my first series to be in India, I think it was only in my latter years I realized how special that was. To play against some of those greats. We played, obviously, Sachin, Jawaharlal Srinath, Anil Kumble, that sort of core group of players. We had, I think, Mohammad Azruddin, AJ Jadeja, that group of players that we played in those times, and also the South African team with the Hansi Cronje, Donalds, Rhodes, that era. That was my first tour, and we played it in India in front of those crowds. Was special. We hardly have 100 people watching a game, a first class game in Zimbabwe. You play warm up games in India that the crowds are bigger than our international crowds are here in Zimbabwe. So for us, it was a great sort of introduction to international cricket, and I suppose it gave us that taste and that to want to go there. And of course, India is a great place to be. We had lots of fun. Like I think just experiencing the traffic in India was something to behold for us. We come from a very organized and structured traffic system in our part of the world. So that was quite interesting. And of course, the culture and the food is very different. So yeah, we had lots of fun, and we gelled together as a team. In those days, we didn't have Google and satellite TV and mobile phones and WhatsApp and that to be able to communicate home. So we had to bond together as a unit, and I think it's maybe a part of cricket that's missing a little bit these days. We used to spend a lot of time. We used to spend a lot of time in the change rooms talking, talking to each other about cricket, and that's where we learned. After the games, we weren't in a rush to pick up our mobile phones or get back and watch a Netflix series. We discussed and spoke cricket, and India was a great place. India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan was a great place for us to learn our trade.
And Sriki, one of the things that I remember from our time at Gujarat Lions was when you were at work, it was a very serious Sriki at work, where, discussing strategies and all. And yes, talking about cricket around the dressing room or in the team room. But later on, when we used to just sit outside, maybe in a social setting, it was a very fun Streaky that used to be there. We used to all gel and we used to talk about things other than cricket as well. Was that always the case, or is that something you've developed and you think it's also important to bond as a team in that sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, we always used to have a lot of fun off the field. I think there's a time to be serious and focused, but even during games, I think it helps you when you make the odd joke and people relax and can express themselves a bit more. And, I was always like that. Obviously, there's a time to be serious, but there's sometimes that you need to see a little bit of humor, and life is there to be lived, and we had a lot of fun off the field. I used to do I used to love the pranks, prank calling people. I remember the one on one of my first tours, I called one of the guys and told him I was from BDM and we wanted to sponsor him. And we were all going out for a team dinner, but we told them that the guy, we said I could only come during the time when we were having the team dinner. So this guy, and he was not a great batsman, so he thought he was like special because he was getting sponsored by BDM. And he sat in the lobby. We all went for dinner, and when he came back, he was still sitting there. No one had come, but obviously we were the ones who had pranked him to think he was getting sponsored by BDM. So we used to do lots of just funny things, just to make the tours fun. Like I said, there wasn't much entertainment, so you had to create your own entertainment. But I think that camaraderie and that joking around also made us fight harder for each other. On the field, the guys would really bond and gel together, and when times were tough, the guys would get behind you. And I think that was the special thing about our era of cricket, and particularly with Zimbabwe.
And in that sense, how big was the 99 World Cup for Zimbabwe, beating India, South Africa, making quite an impression in England in a tournament that was very competitive? So how important was that?
Yeah, I think, for us it was a hugely important tournament. I think really, Zimbabwe had been on the map, and I think in the 96, we had won our first test series. We had done well against England, and Zimbabwe were taken seriously. But I think the 99 World Cup was really the eclipse of people saying, these guys have arrived on the big sea now, and no country, could take Zimbabwe lightly, particularly in ODI cricket. I think we had, that was when we had Murray Goodwin, Neil Johnson, Andy Flower, Alistair Campbell, Guy Whittle, Henry Alonga, Paul Strang. We had a really good side, and we beat the top teams. And I think we ended up in the Super Six of the World Cup, having beaten India and South Africa. And those were momentous and very historical, events for Zimbabwe cricket, and really put us on the map. And also, it was to be honest, it was the start of professional cricket for Zimbabwe, because, post that, there was a lot of sponsorship. A lot of people wanted to be associated with Zim cricket, and from there, the cricket became a professional entity in Zimbabwe, and not just the national team players, but all the national team players, extended players, and also the first class players started getting paid to play cricket, and so it was a massive time in Zimbabwe cricket's history.
And later, when it came to your captaincy, was it how tough was it on you, because you were already batting and bowling, very important down the order as a batsman, taking the new ball, captaincy with the added pressure of leading the side, and later things off the field also affecting Zimbabwe cricket. Very difficult in that sense to hold your own. How challenging was that for you personally?
I think the biggest challenge. I think it's challenging for anyone to captain. I think it's really hard being an all-rounder, and especially in the latter days of my career, I was a genuine all-rounder. At the beginning, I was more a bowler, frontline bowler who could bat, and towards the end, I became a genuine all-rounder, and so there was a lot of expectation from me from a performance side, and that was difficult. But I think the most challenging thing was in Zimbabwe, all the off-field stuff. At the time, there was the farm invasions, we were losing our land. There was a lot happening with Zimbabwe cricket. There was a lot of turmoil outside of the cricket field. So we weren't just trying to manage, what's happening and trying to beat a team. You were dealing with all the peripheral politics and everything that was going on. It was very tough to manage. And Zimbabwe as a country itself was going through quite a lot of political turmoil. So very difficult times to manage. And obviously everyone knows with Henry Alonga and Andy Flower had the black armband protest. It was when the culmination of the opposition politics really strengthened, and there was a lot of fighting between Mugabe's ruling party and the new opposition, and so behind the scenes that was that. But one of the special things was at the time we felt we were galvanizing the country. Cricket was the one sort of multiracial, multicultural, multi-political sort of sport that everyone could see, that everyone could get together irrespective of what culture they were, what political affiliation they had. And so we also felt that we had an onus on keeping the country together, much like the Indian team now. It has a big bearing on the on the confidence and that of the country. Everyone looks up to them.
Yes, that's true. And but when you're playing days, who are some of the tougher batsmen you bowl to? I know you spoke about Sachin Tendulkar and all, but in a sense of just bowling and say enjoying the challenge of bowling to someone who will come at you and who's got a skill set that is possibly a cut above the rest. You obviously had Andy Flower on your side, but some of the others whom you enjoyed bowling to from a challenge perspective.
Yeah, a couple. Obviously, Sachin goes without saying. I think I did get Sachin out a few times. I just felt that you had to get Sachin out early. If you didn't, his conversion ratio was if he got in, you just thought, oh no, this guy's going to get a double hundred. I just felt that when he first came to the crease, that's when you had to get him. Raul Dravid defensively was one of the toughest guys to when he decided he wanted to stick around. There wasn't too many guys that were harder to get out than him. Obviously I bowled to guys like Ricky Ponting. Adam Gilchrist and Matthew Hayden were two of the most attacking batsmen that I had to bowl at. They were really devastating. Lara was also one of those. I felt that he was very vulnerable early, but once he got in, he was one of the most dangerous players because he could hit balls that you thought were good balls, that when you went back to the top of your mark, you thought, well, that was actually a good ball. I have to bowl the ball in the same place that he's just hit you for a 4 or a 6. He was that gifted a player. And also once he got in, he was also very difficult because he just felt like he could just put the ball, place it wherever he wanted. If he wanted a single or a boundary, he could just almost do it at will. And then Inzamam Al Haq was another one who I found very, a lot of players, especially if you got good control, you could pull your length back and hold them, and sort of slow their scoring down. But Inzamam was such a good player, because he was tall and he could play the back foot. Very difficult once he got into, to get going.
It's interesting you mentioned Inzamam ul Haq also. Did you consider him as someone like who was very good against fast bowling? He just seemed to have that extra time with him.
Yeah, look, Inzi was, everyone jokes about him and that with like his running, but he was one of the toughest batsmen, that I had to ever bowl at. He was a really gifted player. He seemed like, in fact, I'd probably say he had the most time of any of the guys I ever had to bowl at. He just felt like he was like, as the ball was coming, he was deciding what to do with it. A very gifted guy, naturally gifted player, and one of the toughest guys I had to bowl at.
Streaky, you've obviously played at the county level for Warwickshire, and you were there for quite some time. Also, later on, you have been a part of the IPL as a coach. What has been your experience in terms of learning from these cultures, also imparting knowledge to young bowlers who may not completely understand what you're saying, considering the different language barriers, etc. So what has this whole experience and journey been like?
Yeah, no, it's been interesting, and I think as a coach, it's been one of the most interesting things. Coaching across cultures, coming from Zimbabwe, you do it anyway because we've got a very diverse group of people who play. But going across to Bangladesh and India, and that, it was great, because there it's not just the cultures, it's also the language, side of things, and that can be a challenge. So it was very good for us. You learn how to be able to communicate, across the language side of things. Like, for example, I used to get when I was in Bangladesh, Mustafiz was very poor at English, and I used to have to get one of the senior players to translate. And it was, he was a really funny guy. He only knew. I would only get the nod, then I knew that he understood, or he would say no, understood, and then we had to go again. So it was very challenging with some guys, and then of course others are very easy to coach. And I think coaching in this era now has become more of it's managing personalities, managing people. In the old days, the coaches, it was this my way or the highway. This was how you do it. If you didn't fit within that sort of mold, you generally got left behind or not picked. Whereas now, it's much more different. You've got to embrace the different characters. Some guy, you put your arm around him, and other guys, you need to shout at them to get them, motivated. And that's what we've got to learn as coaches. And I've been very fortunate that I've managed to get a good diversity of that sort of experience growing as a coach. And I've loved it, loving being in different countries. It's tough, tough being, like, for me to be away from my family for 2 years in Bangladesh was tough. But it definitely, as a coach, my experiences there and what I learned, I wouldn't be anywhere near the coach that I am had I not, been given that opportunity to go and coach in Bangladesh, for example.
Even when you were playing, like, let's say up to 2005, it was a very different world, and now it's a very different world. We've got technology and everything's been made a lot simpler. And I do remember when you used to do your coaching sessions, you would have your iPad out, you would show your markings to the bowlers. So in that sense, how much has that helped your coaching style, using an iPad or different types of technologies that are available?
Yeah, I think, look, I think the analysis as really, in fact, cricket in a lot of respects was very slow to catch up to the rest of the world in terms of analysis and using technology and being able to look at opposition players and pick up trends, how people get out, how teams play, what conditions they play better in, what they're more vulnerable to, spin, seam, certain types of dismissal deliveries, anything like that. And we've got this great tool now to our advantage, and I've really loved being able to do it, to use that, use those tools. It's made our jobs a lot easier and takes a lot of the guesswork out. In our days, you thought a guy was an LBW candidate. The way you found out was, you would go and try, and the guy, would clip you for 5 balls through the leg side, and then you'd say, no, maybe we haven't worked this one out, So then you would start again, whereas a lot of that homework is done for you. But of course, you still then have to match it to the ability of the player. It's one thing being able to get a guy out in a certain way, but then you've got to be able to have the type of player who can do it.
Here, especially in India, people have not forgotten you. Whenever you come, obviously, have you ever been able to go out without being mobbed or being recognized? Because I still remember back even a couple of years ago, people still knew who you were, and they will always. So what's that feeling like, and what does your family feel about it when they come here and see you being surrounded by an army of people?
Well, I suppose I was fortunate. I played so much in India, and then after playing in India, I then was coaching Bangladesh, and when I was coaching Bangladesh, they played a lot against India. Then I coached in IPL, for 2 teams, for Gujarat Lions and KKR. So I suppose in a lot of ways I kept being exposed to to what was going on, and it's special. Some people can find it a bit difficult. They want to just have their space and freedom, but actually I really love it. I think it's one of the great things about India, their passion. Having little kids come up and ask for your autograph, and even older people, like people who remembered me are probably more the older generation. The fact that they can come up and shake hands and see you, and to put it, I always try and put it into perspective and say, well, if I met a Hollywood or Bollywood actor that I admire so much, and I walked up to them and they just turned away from me, my whole perception of them would change. So I was very conscientious of that and made sure that I did that. And my family couldn't believe how idolized cricket, anyone to do with cricket was. So it was special, and special for them to see that, to see not just how we get treated as cricket players, but also to go to an IPL game and to feel the vibe of being in that environment where you've got 60, 70,000 people, just passionate people screaming and supporting you. So yeah, we've been very blessed to have had that, and my kids and my family to witness that firsthand, rather than sitting on the other side of a TV. If you've never been to an IPL game or an international match in India, you haven't fulfilled cricket. I think you have to, at some stage in your life, go and watch a cricket match in India, whether it's international or IPL. You have to do that, I think.
Yes, Streaky, we all are hoping, and yes, we hope all this gets cleared soon, so that we can go back to our old ways, in a sense that obviously with a few changes, but we go back to meeting again, we go back to sharing dinners, lunches, everything all over again, and watching the sport we love. As always, Streaky, it's been really great fun talking to you, and I look forward to seeing you next. I don't know when it will be, but I do hope it is very soon.
Thank you, Nishad. It's been great chatting to you.
Thank you, everyone, and we will be back on Niche Sports very soon.